My neighbor made a fatal mistake. He decided my sister was defenseless. He exposed his true nature to her, and in response, I destroyed his world so quietly that he never realized who pulled the trigger. Maplewood, Connecticut. Population 23,000. Median income, $90,000 a year. Crime statistically below the national average. Manicured lawns. White porches. In autumn, it smells of apple cider and bonfire smoke. In summer, of freshly cut grass and chlorine from swimming pools. This is one of those towns where people leave their doors unlocked, where neighbors smile at each other when crossing paths at the mailboxes and never linger for real conversation. The perfect backdrop for middle-class life. Beautiful, sterile, and utterly fake. I moved here 3 years ago after our parents died. Car accident. Head-on collision with a drunk driver on Route 95, December 15th, exactly 7 p.m. Instant death for both. That's what the doctor said, as if it was supposed to be comforting. I was 21. My sister Sarah was 14. I became her legal guardian by court order, dropped out of college, and found remote work in information security. We moved to Maplewood because I had a good school and low crime. I thought I was protecting her. Sarah was a quiet girl, not in the sense of shyness, but of inner harmony. She read Sylvia Plath poetry and listened to indie rock, wore worn jeans and stretched sweaters, rarely smiled, but when she did, it was like sunlight breaking through clouds. Our house stood on the corner of Elm Street, a single-story 1960s ranch with a gray roof and faded siding. Across the street, Mr. Grayson's mansion loomed. The man with the perfect facade. Robert Grayson, 54 years old, widower, former partner at a Hartford law firm, retired at 48 after his wife died of cancer, lives on passive income, investments, real estate. His house, a brick colonial mansion with white columns and perfectly symmetrical landscaping, was the most expensive on our street. Lawn like a golf course carpet, hedges trimmed with mathematical precision, black Mercedes C-Class in the driveway, always clean, even after rain. Grayson was a pillar of the community, city council member, donated money to the library and school orchestra, attended the Presbyterian church every Sunday. The neighbors loved him. When we moved in, he came over with a fruit basket and business card, firm handshake, direct gaze of gray eyes through thin-framed glasses, voice confident but not loud. "Welcome to Maplewood," he said. "If you need anything, let me know. We are like family here." I thank him and close the door. Something about his smile was wrong. Too perfect teeth, too intent gaze at Sarah when she walked past, but I chalked it up to paranoia. Losing our parents had made me suspicious of everyone. The first 2 years passed quietly. Grayson kept his distance. Sometimes I'd see him step out on his porch with coffee and a newspaper, watching the street. He'd nod if our eyes met, nothing more. Then spring came. Sarah started her senior year of high school. She began going on morning runs, exactly at 6, before I woke up for work. And Grayson started coming out to his porch, every morning, at 6 o'clock, with coffee, just sat and watched. Sarah didn't tell me about it, but I noticed she stopped running. The line that cannot be crossed. It happened on a Wednesday, April 23rd. The day was warm, almost summery. I was working from home, had just finished a conference call with a client, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. Through the window, I saw Sarah. She was walking from the school bus, backpack on one shoulder, earbuds in, slow gait, eyes on the pavement. Grayson stood by his mailbox. I didn't think much of it, just a coincidence. But then I saw him raise his hand, call out to her. Sarah stopped, removed one earbud. Grayson said something. She nodded and walked toward him across the street. I watched through the window. Something inside me tightened. Grayson pointed to his house. Sarah frowned, shook her head. He smiled, took a step closer. And then, with a sudden movement, unzipped his pants and parted the sides of his light jacket. I couldn't see the details, but I saw Sarah's face, saw how it transformed from confusion to horror in a split second, how she recoiled, dropping her backpack, how she turned and ran toward the house. I was already at the door when she burst inside, face deathly pale, breathing rapid, ragged, hands trembling so violently she couldn't untie her sneakers. "Sarah, what happened?" She looked at me, and in her eyes was not just fear. There was a vulnerability that tore something in my chest. "Mr. Grayson, I don't know why he." The words came in ragged fragments, but I understood. Understood everything. When the system doesn't work. I called the police. Two arrived. A young patrolman with acne on his chin and an older sergeant with a faded tattoo on his forearm. Sarah gave her statement, in a quiet voice, staring at the floor, described everything. The sergeant took notes, nodded, then sighed and put away his notebook. "We'll talk to Mr. Grayson," he said. "But honestly, the evidence is weak. No witnesses except your sister. He'll say she was mistaken or made it up." "She didn't make it up." "I believe you, son, but word against word, that's not a case. A judge won't even consider it." They left, walked across the street, knocked on Grayson's door. He opened it, surprised, concerned. Perfect mask of the righteous. I watched from the window. The conversation lasted 10 minutes. Grayson shook his head, spread his hands, gestured toward our house with an expression of sincere regret. The officers nodded, shook his hand, left. The sergeant knocked on our door on the way back. He denies everything, says he just came out for the mail, that he didn't even have a conversation with the girl. I remained silent. "Look," the sergeant continued, "Mr. Grayson is a respected man, former lawyer, philanthropist. He has attorneys who'll bury any accusations without solid evidence. My advice, stay away from him and document everything. If it happens again, call. Maybe we can build a pattern of behavior." The door closed. Sarah was crying in her room. And I sat in the kitchen understanding. The law is dead. If the system doesn't protect those it's supposed to protect, then you're alone with the predator. And you either become stronger than him, or you surrender. I never surrender. Anatomy of destruction. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Just sat in front of the computer, studying the target. Robert Grayson was careful. His digital footprint minimal. No social media except LinkedIn with a professional portrait. Email registered on his former firm's corporate domain. Phone, an old model without smartphone features. But everyone has weaknesses. I started with his house. No security system. Who steals in Maplewood? Wi-Fi password protected, but the router was old. I hacked it in 40 minutes through a WPS vulnerability, sitting in my car across from his house at 2 in the morning. Got access to the home network, one computer, Windows 7 without updates, outdated antivirus. It was like cracking a safe with an open door. I installed a backdoor, got remote access, started examining files. Documents, taxes, photos of his wife, nothing interesting. Then I found a hidden folder, not in the recycle bin, not in standard directories, in system files, disguised as service logs. Inside were videos, hours of footage, camera installed somewhere on the second floor of his house, aimed at our street, zoom on girls walking past, on Sarah jogging in the mornings, close-ups, slow-motion replays. I sat and stared at the screen, felt cold spreading through my veins. But this wasn't enough. The video was shot from his own property, technically legal, disgusting, but legal. I needed more. Grayson was a widower. Wife died 7 years ago. They were childless. Only heir, a nephew, David, 32, lives in Boston, works as a financial analyst. I found Grayson's will in his law firm's cloud storage, password recovered through a 2019 data breach. All assets, house, investments, about $2 million, go to the nephew. David visited his uncle once a year. Last visit, last Christmas. I created an anonymous email, wrote to David, subject, about your Uncle Robert. Text brief, your uncle is conducting covert video surveillance of minors in our neighborhood. This will reflect on your reputation when it becomes public. Think about your career. Attached screenshots of the files, without the actual content. I don't distribute such things. 2 days later, David arrived. I watched him knock on his uncle's door. The conversation was brief. Grayson tried to explain, gesticulated. David turned and left without looking back. He never came again. Pawn removed from the board. Next move. Finances. Grayson lived on income from 3 sources: rent from commercial real estate in Hartford, stock dividends, and pension payments. Commercial real estate, an old office building. Main tenant, a small insurance firm. Contract renewed automatically every 5 years. I sent an anonymous letter to the firm's owner hinting that the building was under investigation for safety violations. A lie, but convincing. Attached forged inspection documents. The owner didn't bother checking, just terminated the contract early and moved. The building emptied. Grayson lost 30% of his income. Bishop removed. Final strike. Reputation. I printed flyers. No photos, no direct accusations, just facts. Robert Grayson, residing at 237 Elm Street, conducts covert video surveillance of neighborhood residents. Information has been submitted to law enforcement. Mailed to every house on the street. Within a week, Grayson stopped leaving his house. Neighbors exchanged glances when passing by. Someone wrote pervert in red paint on his driveway. Queen fell. The for sale sign appeared 3 weeks later. I was sitting on the porch with coffee when I saw Grayson for the last time. He was carrying boxes to a moving truck, aged, hunched, glasses slid down to the tip of his nose. He stopped, looked at our house. Our eyes met. In his eyes was understanding. He didn't know the details, but he knew it was me. I raised my cup, nodded. He looked away and finished loading. By evening, the house was empty. Epilogue. Sarah runs in the mornings again, smiles more often. Next fall, she'll go to college. Grayson is gone. The house was bought by a young family with 2 children. Sometimes people ask me, do I regret it? No. There are boundaries that cannot be crossed. Grayson crossed the line. He thought reputation would protect him. But reputation is a house of cards, and one precise touch is enough to make it collapse. I made that touch, quietly, methodically, mercilessly, and I would do it again.